Hey, welcome to the Unbelievable Podcast. I am BJ Reidell, back here with my guy, Drew Mahowald. And today, we are recapping the Vikings preseason W over the Seattle Seahawks. So that will just we don't really have like a set schedule for what we're going to talk about, but I imagine that will sort of bleed into a conversation about the backup quarterback position. Given that Drew and myself sort of have a difference in opinion there. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then, we'll get into all of the kind of roster battles that we have going with the Vikings and kind of see where that heads. Also on task for today, we'll talk a little bit about the Twins. They did exactly and a little bit more than what we talked about in the last show, trying to get at least a game-and-a-half lead out of this Texas Rangers series. They did us one better. They're up to 2.5 in the Central, heading into a 13-game stretch of playing two very, 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 very subpar baseball teams. So things are looking up in Twins territory, so we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll finish up with our NFL Bold Predictions segment and wrap up the show in hopefully about an hour. So that's the game plan for today. Let me quickly read this advertisement, and then we'll jump into the show. So once again, this is for SOCOM Creative. This is my buddy's company. He does a great job with it. Are you ready to call an audible for your advertising? It's 2019. If you're not advertising your business on Facebook or Instagram, you are losing. Period. End of story. Winning Facebook and Instagram campaigns are well targeted. It's hard to sell lawn care to people who don't own lawns. Scroll stopping, kind of like stopping the run early in the game. If you want to get your customers' attention on Facebook or Instagram, you got to find a way to stop that scroll. And then lastly, they make money. Winning campaigns aren't about likes and shares. It's all about the dollars that go into your pocket. If you're ready to kick ass with your social media ads, check out our friends over at SOCOM Creative. That's SOCOM Creative, folks. All they do is come up with ways to help you explode your business and bring you new customers. And I am a happy customer. Cameron Clarkson, who runs SOCOM Creative, has been sort of our agent. Whenever we do podcasts, he sort of parlays the advertisements and stuff that we do and that we're able to promote on our shows. So he does a great job down at SOCOM Creative. Make sure to check that out for all of your advertising social media needs. All right, Drew, let's talk some football.
Okay. I can do that.
Yeah, I can too. So as of this recording, we're recording late afternoon on Monday, so the preseason game is over. The Twins game has not started, so I guess keep that in mind for in the future when we talk about the Twins. Why don't you get me started by just kind of telling me your primary takeaways from the preseason? Again, I know it's the preseason, but what are your main takeaways from the game that you watched yesterday?
Number one, Adam Thielen is still very, very good.
Shocker.
Yeah, not that that's a surprise. Offensive line is still shaky. I think all across the board. I think in particular the number 2 unit run blocking was a little bit iffy. It looked like Mike Boone had a really tough time finding holes and space to run. Defensively, Harrison Smith is still the best safety in football. Jaron Kearse has been taking note of what Harrison Smith does and played his tail off. Incredible game by him. I thought Ifeadi Onadegbo is still we kind of figured he'd be a key piece in defense this year. I think he'll have a nice rotational spot this year, and eventually it's going to be kind of a rotation between Hunter, Weatherly, Odenigbo, right, for those 3 defensive ends, depending on how long Griffin stays a Viking. I thought he was tremendous, and then I think we'll get to the QB situation eventually, but I still think Sean Mannion is QB too.
I think you pointed out pretty much every major takeaway from this game, to be honest with you. Like I was, as you were going down the list, I was kind of like checking off the things that I would say, and I think you knocked out. Everything I was going to say. My major takeaways from watching that game, Jaron Kearse was probably number 1 for me, just because. So Jaron Kearse has kind of a special place in my heart because he was the very first NFL player that I ever interviewed. And he was really nice about it too. So it was his rookie season as well. And so I was, scared shitless and talking to this mammoth Terminator of a human being. And, he was a 7th rounder coming out of Clemson. So he had kind of unfair expectations, because he's coming from this powerhouse school with a body like a Greek god and he was sort of underdeveloped. So it's been really cool to watch him develop from year to year. Now, a couple of major critiques that I've had on him throughout his tenure with the Vikings were tackling angles, just taking the wrong route to the ball, tackling with his head down. So not necessarily like Holton Hill, but like I'm talking like his eyes were like parallel with the parallel. No,
yeah,
parallel or parallel to the ground. It's not
it depends.
His eyes were looking at the ground as opposed to the player in front of him. So those were my major critiques. And so I liked what you said about him kind of taking a page out of Harrison Smith's book, because that's what he was doing really well yesterday. I believe he had 3 tackles for loss. So that means that he was shooting the gaps well, he was finding the ball quickly and efficiently, and really he was looking like a starting safety. I know that we've basically handed the job opposite Harrison Smith, so free, strong, whatever you want to call it. I just call it the number 2 safety with the Vikings because Harrison Smith basically does
everything,
as we saw yesterday. We've handed that to Anthony Harris, but I don't see. Harris is great in zone coverage. He's not great in man coverage, for what it's worth. Kearse struggles with as well, and honestly, that's Harrison Smith's weakest area as well from the safety perspective. But I'm not ready to hand every single snap to Anthony Harris in the start at safety opposite Harrison Smith, because I think that it works well for Jayron Kearse to come in and play in kind of the strong situations. So when he's kind of dropping in as like basically what would be a 4th linebacker, and have Harrison Smith go over the top. And you can kind of split those. You can kind of, in my head, I'm combining Anthony Harris and Jayron Kearse into one safety, where the cerebral part of the safety position gets handed to Anthony Harris, whereas the more physical, thumping portion of being a safety is kind of Jayron Kearse's game. Mm-hmm. And so I think that he did a really good job of solidifying himself as a guy that can contribute this season yesterday against the Seahawks, because he was doing that against 1s and 2s and then absolutely destroying 3s and 4s. So he looks like a starting caliber player to me. So that was my major takeaway, was the improvement that I saw from Jayron Kearse last night.
Yeah, I think you talked about kind of replacing Harris, or at least not replacing Harris, but giving some of those snaps.
It's more supplementing him. I want to make that pretty clear. I'm not trying to replace Harris. I'm trying to add to what Harris doesn't do well.
Well, I think there's room for a situation where all 3 of those safeties are on the field, because Kearse has played nickel before. Sure. He won't be matching up with like Tyler Lockett in man coverage or anything.
Sure.
But if there's a call or a package, whatever, that you can kind of have 2 of those 3 guys blitz or something, and you don't really know who's coming where, and the other one plays a robber type of play in zone. That's something that I would be interested in seeing for sure. So it just gives Zimmer more creativity, where Kearse can line up a linebacker at nickel or at safety, and he can perform all 3 roles. So like you said, I think Harris is clearly the number 2 safety, but I think there's definitely good depth behind I guess both Harris and Smith in the event that Kearse will have to play more. Not a huge drop off as maybe there was a couple years ago when that was the case with Kearse.
Yeah, it's interesting what you can do there for sure. I mean, everyone's already seen the big nickel package that Kearse slides in there and basically plays. It's basically linebacker, but if you want to call it a corner, you can probably do that as well, or you can call it a safety. You can basically call it whatever you want. It's a big nickel. That's just that's simply what it is. So we've already seen kind of the the fun stuff that Zimmer can do with Kearse. I just expect that to sort of be added on to this season for sure. The other guy that stood out to me in a big way was Mike Boone, the running back, third string. Came into camp as potentially even the 4th string running back. I think you can make an argument now that he is good enough to be the number 2 running back. Probably falls a little bit short of Alex Madison based on his kind of draft pedigree. But we've also seen that Zimmer has said that he'd like to see Madison improve his pass blocking before it becomes sort of an every down running back. So I think there's a very real argument right now that Mike Boone could be that number 2 running back. I think Abdullah really did himself a disservice by not being on the field yesterday, because Mike Boone took full advantage of that.
Oh, yeah.
Caught the ball out of the backfield well. He had that 44-yard catch and run that made, I believe that was Sean Mannion that threw it, right? Or was it Slaughter?
It was
Mannion. Made Mannion look good. And then you have he had a couple of very nice runs. He's done that in both games so far. So I've been extremely impressed with him both between the tackles and then also kind of that open field speed that and vision that I've seen from him as well. So I was extremely impressed with Boone. And as far as I'm concerned, with Mike Hughes, if Mike Hughes were able to come back immediately, I think that Abdullah would be as good as gone because you wouldn't have a real position for him other than kick returner. And in this scenario, I'm sort of slotting Hughes in there to replace Abdullah.
Right. Oh, and Badette, too, had a nice return as well.
He did.
He returned yesterday. So, I mean, I agree with you that Boone seems to be kind of, like you said, taking full advantage of any opportunity he can get to become the RB3. Where it looks like, I mean, when you draft Madison where you did, you kind of have to roster him, and there kind of leaves one spot open there for someone, whether it's Abdullah or Boone. And, like you said, going into camp, it was absolutely Abdullah's spot to lose. And I think at this point he's losing it. So Boone right now, I mean, he's a violent runner, which is a good thing. He runs hard, and again, like I said, I didn't think the offensive line blocked very well for him, especially in the second half when he was kind of the go-to back. But he grinded out 66 yards on 21 carries, and again he had the long catch and run as well. So a guy that you can run the clock out with, if you will. It seemed like that's what the Vikings. That's what they did yesterday, really, to get the win. They just handed it to Mike Boone, and he kind of grinded out those tough yards when they needed it.
He has definitely solidified himself as a preseason All-Star. I think it would be very difficult for us to get away from the offense without talking about Irv Smith Jr. too. Just the 2 games that he's played so far in the preseason, he's now got 8 catches. He's finding a way to get open. I know there's always gonna be that guy who's like, oh, it's against second and third stringers. Well, he's doing what he's supposed to do against those players, and until he has the opportunity to play against first stringers on a regular basis, I mean, what more do you want from him? Like you're basically just trying to find a reason to sell him short. And I'm very impressed with Irv Smith Jr. And as someone who didn't particularly care about that draft pick, I'm not saying I disliked it, but I was, let's say, indifferent about the Vikings drafting a tight end that early. I've been very impressed, and I see a lot of Vernon Davis in his skill set, and I think that part of that is because I connect a lot of big, fast tight ends to Vernon Davis because he was really the first one, at least in my brain, that stood out as a guy who was humongous and still ran like a 4.6. But I see Irv Smith sort of in that same light. And I think that there's so many things that you can do with him already with his game, especially because I was watching particularly his pass blocking yesterday because Zimmer had been talking about throughout the week and the last couple of weeks, he's been saying, I've been very impressed with, Smith's ability to pass block. And I hadn't really been watching that because I've been thinking him as a stretch the field tight end. But he really looked the part. He's looking like a number 1/number 2 tight end and a guy that can definitely make an impact in 2 tight end sets as a rookie, which, again, is something you almost never see, and part of the reason why I'm hesitant to even say anything about the potential for his rookie year, just because you very rarely see a rookie tight end put up more than 400 yards maybe. I mean, how many guys have done that? Like, it's like Gronk, and, like, that's about it pretty much for the most part. No one comes to mind.
Nobody comes to mind. So as far as tight ends' immediate impact, it's rare. It's rare. It's
extremely rare. So I was very impressed with his game and the wide open touchdown catch. I mean, 3 years ago we saw Kyle Rudolph drop a wide open touchdown. So I give credit to wide open touchdown catches as well. I do, and I was very happy with his performance. So you look at the rookies. The young guys, Bradbury, who we haven't talked about on the show much other than butt sweat, and I think that's a good thing because if you're standing out as an offensive lineman, generally that's a bad thing.
This is true. Yeah.
So I've been, I would give him, a positive grade. I've been impressed with him. Irv Smith, I've also been impressed with him, and Madison for the most part, he's not dynamic. He's not going to blow you away with top end speed or anything like that, but he can break loose, and he seems to have a comfortable feel running the football. So I've been very impressed with the first 3 picks of the Vikings draft so far.
Yeah, and then kind of moving over to receiver, we saw things shake up a little bit, I think. I mean, I thought Brandon Zylstra kind of did what he was supposed to do in that game. And opened near the red zone, did score the touchdown on that running to the left pass from Sloter. And, the thing with Treadwell was, so he had a good game, like he did. I mean, for what he's asked to do against second and third stringers, now we get not keeping in mind that he was a first round pick. But Zimmer did say right afterwards that, like, he flat out said that we were trying to showcase him to get rid of him. So
do you think he regrets saying it the way he did? Because he used the term showcase.
Yeah, he did, which is
that
like,
for sure is like, that is the ultimate way of saying, hey, this guy's not going to be on our team. And Rick Spielman, 3 days ago, said we haven't even thought about putting him on the trade block. So a little bit of conflicting vernacular there for the two Vikings decision makers.
Unless it's Zimmer's ploy to light a fire under Treadwell, and maybe they are going to keep him, and I don't know. But
I wouldn't put it past him, I guess.
That's the only reasoning I can think of for that to be, a good idea, to just tell teams, we're trying to trade this guy straight up. So that's the only reason he had, a solid performance in this game. But I mean, he looked okay. Again, we're always going to say that it was against second and third stringers and worse even. It's still, I mean, you look at, he got one snap with the ones, and it was one of those sets where there was like three tight ends, and they brought him in literally as a fourth tight end essentially to block on a run play.
And he blocked
I think
well.
inside their own 5 or 6. Yeah, he did, but it's such a tell. Like, the guy, that's all he does.
Yeah. And
you bring him in there with 3 tight ends. What do you think is going to happen? Like, I mean, if that's his only use, then there's no reason for him to be on the roster. Whereas, Zylstra, I guess BC Johnson didn't do a whole lot, but Jeff Badet even, like, I don't know. I don't see it.
So, has Treadwell done enough to earn a 7th round pick from a team that no?
Well, it depends on who's desperate, because the Giants are desperate, and I've seen the
Giants
the
are
New York
definitely
Giants,
desperate.
I've seen the Giants thrown around a lot as far as a potential landing spot, just because the Shermer Treadwell connection and whatnot. But
the fact that they've already lost their top 3 receivers for the year,
that's why they're desperate. But I don't know.
Treadwell is such an interesting situation because, like, he is very young, so, like, he has a lot of traits that, like, make him that I can see why other teams would want him. Like, he's young, he's big, he's physical. He does work really hard for what it's worth. Like, no one can take that away from him. He puts in the time and effort. I don't know how coachable he is. I remember that was a problem during his rookie season, and I have to imagine that's sort of carried over throughout his career. Otherwise, 4 years in, you'd think that you'd see a little bit more progress, assuming he was coachable.
You wouldn't see the head coach telling other teams that we are showcasing the guy?
Yeah, probably not. Yeah. But I guess I can see why another team would be willing to kick the tires on him for a 7th round pick. If you think about the value of a 7th round pick and the players that come out of the 7th round.
I mean, how many times did Corey Coleman get traded for a 7th round pick?
He got traded for a 4th one time, I think, and then and then I think a 6th or 7th.
How much more productive has he been than Treadwell?
Not much. But he can run, and people just love speed. And that's Treadwell doesn't have any speed, like, at all. So, I don't know. It's an interesting situation. Let me ask you this. So, after we've gone through 2 preseason games, we know that it's going to be Diggs and Thielen on top. Who's 3, 4, 5, 6 right now for you?
I don't think they keep 6, for what it's worth.
Really?
No. I think you have to go BB because he's holding. Like, he's a holder now.
I think BB's, like, essentially, like, he's solidified himself as the slot receiver.
Yeah.
He's playing with the ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's the holder, which I still don't.
It's hilarious, but
understand or you get that, but I'm not a special teams coach. So you got Diggs, Thielen, BB. I was feeling really good about BC Johnson before last night. I think Badet is going to be on the team, both special teams, and I think, like you've mentioned, his vertical speed. And Taylor, maybe he hasn't had a great preseason or camp either, but he's got at least experience in actual NFL games to use to his credit, I guess. So right there, I guess that's my group. Don't love it, but I think the last guy, if there is a sixth guy, I think I'd go Zylstra.
So are you interested in bringing in a veteran receiver? Like, for example, Dontrell Inman just hit the open market. I saw people on Twitter talking about him, for example.
Yeah, I would. Him, or is Pierre Garçon still free?
Yeah.
Because if he is, it makes sense, right?
In theory, he makes the most sense.
I don't know. I guess I don't know what his health status is, or where his, if he's even wanting to play anymore. But, he played with Kirk Cousins before, did he not? So yeah. I don't know. That seems to make sense. And the Aldrick Robinson, thing worked last year, where they brought in a guy that played with Kirk before, and it still seemed to click. So I don't know. That makes sense to me the most. And when you got a bunch of completely unproven guys on your team.
Yeah, so you've got the two guys at top.
It's worth seeing if it can make sense anyway, both with the money and, chemistry-wise, whatnot.
Yeah, you got the two guys up top that are definitely going to produce. That's going to happen. You've got the number 3. I think that's BB. I think that he'll give you stuff. I think he'll give you something. I like BB for the most part. I didn't like that he stopped on his route and did that.
Yeah.
And kind of.
Yeah.
That wasn't good.
So it wasn't Sean Mannion's fault.
It wasn't necessarily Sean Mannion's fault, but it was. It wasn't a good look for either of them. But I think that he's better. I think he is better than advertised right now. After that, though, your 4 can be Jeff Bidet, I think, because you can ask your 4 receiver to just straight up run vertical routes. That's okay. It's okay for your number 4 receiver to have a limited route tree. So I'm okay with that. It's really my problem with the receiving core isn't the players that are currently active. It's what happens when Stephon Diggs misses his 2 games next year, because he always seems to miss 1 or 2 games with some sort of hamstring injury or whatever.
Thielen's production drops off significantly too
naturally,
when that happens, because. Now he got 3 guys probably over giving him attention, on each play. So, that's definitely a concern. And does that mean, maybe that means Irv Smith gets a bunch of targets, or Rudolph gets a bunch of targets, or Dalvin Cook out of the backfield.
To start running 22 sets with 2 receivers and 2 tight ends. Well, I guess that wouldn't be 22, but you know what I mean. 2 tight ends and 2 wide receivers.
Yeah.
They'd have to get very creative if either Thielen or Diggs went down, because right now you see flashes of potential from Mitchell and Johnson. I don't really think BB has all that much potential. I think that he is what he is. He's going to be a slot receiver. Right now he's like a poor man's Cole Beasley. That's what he is.
Brandon Stokely.
Yeah, I don't even think he's not Brandon Stokely was pretty good for a while. I don't think he even has that level of talent.
That's the thing. We talk about these slot receivers like Wes Welker, Beasley. They're all. They just happen to be all white. So that's not the point of what I'm saying. But
right.
The point is these guys. If you give them in a high octane passing offense, like Welker was with Brady and Manning, and then you got Stokely, who was also with Manning in Indianapolis for a while. They're gonna put up numbers by default. But I feel like BB could be a reliable chain mover on 3rd down if you needed him to beat a safety on some little zig route or something like that.
Yeah.
On 3rd and 6. That's what you want out of a slot guy, and I think he's got that skill set for sure. He's a holder, versatile. I'm still so fascinated by that.
To me, he is I don't care. All the small slot receivers are white, like you said. So all the guys that are coming to my head right now that remind me of Chad Beebe. It doesn't matter that he is white.
There's a slot receiver that's not white.
I can't really think of one other than Pierre Garçon, and I think that Pierre Garçon in his heyday was considerably more talented than Chad Beebe, and so that comparison just doesn't work. So, I think the high end would be you get a Welker year. A lot of, but he's not going to have that opportunity.
No. So, no. We're not going to compare the production here. We're talking like template of a player.
Yeah. Yeah. like basically an undersized slot receiver that uses fundamental route running technique in order to get open and make a lot of like 6 and 7 yard catches. That's what I see from Chad Beebe. That's why I think he's Cole Beasley. Like that's what I see from him. I think that he's going to be that guy. He's going to be. What's that?
Which is useful.
Yeah,
that can be useful, especially when you're got so
much
attention.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with running a quick slant and like getting open for 6 yards on 2nd and 10. That's gonna play. Like that sets you up in 3rd and 4 situation as opposed to a 3rd and long. So I mean, he's going to be a piece. I don't love it that he is basically the third most talented receiver, but I don't really hate it. I don't really hate it either. So I need to see more from this receiving core. That's basically what I'm kind of ramping up to.
That's going to be the case, I think, all year unless they do bring in a Garcon or an Inman, whoever it is.
Right.
Or would be. But a lot of – I mean, this sort of would have been like if Treadwell had sort of become a serviceable player, this would have been his year to be
absolutely
productive.
Yeah.
And he's not there. Or, I mean, clearly he's not if he's getting outsnapped by BB and Zylstra and all these other guys with ones, but
that's definitely a shot to the ego right there.
Yeah, and maybe this is all a ploy to kind of fire him up, and maybe he is in the plans for the season. Who knows? But I kind of want to get to the quarterback discussion now because I want to hear what you have to say about Mannion, and then I want to respond to it.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. So my problem with Sean Mannion. I have a lot of problems with Sean Mannion.
Well, we know that.
Yeah, but like so, my biggest issue with him is that he has very, very little talent at the position. Like obviously he's in the NFL, so we're speaking relative to NFL quarterbacks. So what I can say about him in a positive light is that he's better than Paxton Lynch. That's something. He's not particularly good at any one thing. Now, the Vikings contend that he is great at practicing. That's great. That's cool. But basically what you're telling me with that is that he is a good coach on the field. And if that's what you're looking for from your backup quarterback, I'm not saying that's the worst thing in the world to have. It's very, very helpful if your quarterback plays 16 games. You know, Tom Brady has had a lot of guys in the past, you know, a la Brian Hoyer or Matt Castle or et cetera. A lot of these guys who just aren't that talented, but they're helpful in the quarterback room.
This is the point I was going to make.
They're
actually.
Yeah, I mean, they're coachable, they're smart, et cetera. I'll let you ramp up on that. But if that's what you're looking for in your QB2, okay, I can surrender that. Mannion is a lot of those things. Now, my problem is I don't think that he can win football games if he has to play, period. Like, I don't think he's, if Cousins goes down, the season's over. I get it. Like, okay, I'm cool with that line of thinking as well. But would you really rather, like, if Kirk Cousins goes down week 4 and you're 4-0 after 4 weeks and Kirk Cousins isn't coming back until, say, late December, you're going to get 2 more games out of Cousins. You got to find a way to make do of 10 football games. And you have to win probably half of them in order to give you a shot in the postseason. Give me Kyle Sloter. Because he has the potential to give you a lot more than Mannion does. The number one thing for me with Sloter, he straight up, and this is the simplest thing ever, he straight up throws a better football than Mannion does. He throws it more on a line. The spiral is tighter. He sets his feet better, and he kind of gets his hips into it. I bet you millions of dollars he can throw the ball a lot further than Mannion as well. And I think he's a better freelance thinker as a quarterback.
He's a gamer.
He's definitely a gamer. Like, that's for sure. But the way that he sort of like freelances in situations where he's not comfortable. Like, if Sean Mannion's not comfortable, he's falling over. That's gonna happen. With Sloter, like, he can roll out he's clearly more athletic. Like, it's definitive. And I just like the potential that he has. We've never seen him do anything with the ones or play in a regular season game, but he is the best preseason quarterback of the last decade. He's a Hall of Famer in the preseason. I'm not kidding. He's got like 9 touchdowns with 0 picks and like a quarterback rating over 130 in his 3 years of playing in the preseason. Like, I get it that he's playing against guys that are probably going to be working down at Lund's in a couple weeks, but he's playing really well. He is. I mean, he's doing everything that he's supposed to do.
You're not saying anything that's incorrect.
And he's got the potential, and that's what I like. That's what I want.
It's about what you want in your backup quarterback. Now,
yes.
It's literally a philosophy thing, and it sounds like the Vikings right now kind of prefer the guy that
clipboard holder.
The clipboard holder, yeah, and that's not uncommon. That's a very popular philosophy throughout the NFL.
Right.
That's why Sean Mannion had a job. Was he the backup for Goff last year?
He's been the backup for what was it, Goff, and then who preceded Goff in Los Angeles? I can't even remember. That was like a long time ago. But he was the backup. He's been
it was Case Keenum before that, I think.
Was it Case Keenum? Well, Sean Mannion was in New Orleans, right?
I don't even know.
Oh my god!
But basically, what I'm saying is
bad.
The Rams, the Sean McVay Los Angeles Rams, trusted Sean Mannion to be Jared Goff's backup.
Yeah.
Last year, and it's probably for the reasons we talked about, for being the clip holder. Like, it's being a clipboard holder. Like he
was Nick Foles' backup. Keep going. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Well, it's like. Wait, how long ago was Nick Foles playing?
That was 2015, so it really wasn't that long ago. It just seems like a long time ago.
Wow,
by the way, before you go further with this point, who am I thinking of that the Saints drafted in like the 3rd round to be the backup and then ultimately be the guy that supplants Breeze? I think he was drafted the exact same year.
What do you mean?
The guy that. I know. So the Saints, like 3 or 4 years ago, they drafted a quarterback.
Oh, Chase Daniel.
Was it Chase Daniel?
Because that was a long time ago.
There's someone listening to the show right now that's just screaming because they know who I'm thinking of. I think
it's Chase Daniel. Maybe.
Hold up, I'm gonna.
That's like a long time ago though.
No, it wasn't. I'm not thinking that long ago. This was Garrett Grayson. Garrett Grayson. That's who it was.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So. 2015, it was the same year. I confused the two. But go on, sorry.
Okay, well, anyway, that was a humongous aside to what I was saying. But point is, the Rams trusted this guy to be the backup for Jared Goff last year, and they went to the Super Bowl. Clearly, he does something pretty well. He does everything off the field really well. Like you talked about how he doesn't do anything well. I think what he does well is off the field, which, like I said, it's a popular philosophy to want your backup quarterback to be good at that skill. Again, I don't like the Kiwi situation right now if Cousins goes down, and I don't think I will unless something dramatically changes. But now if you want the guy who, by all accounts, and Sloter refuted this today on Twitter, and there was a bit of a spat between the media and him, and I haven't seen the practices, so I don't know. But apparently Zimmer said even himself that like Sloter's not a guy that's going to practice well, but he's a gamer and he'll show up in the big games. If that's the guy you want.
What does that mean, though? Like, this is the bone that I have to pick with that situation because I have a problem with both Kyle Sloter and the media in this situation. Because the media is like Zimmer's word is law, and Kyle Sloter is like practice doesn't matter. That's basically what's happening here. And in so many words, am I wrong for saying that? Like in so many words? So first of all, Zimmer lies all the time, guys. You know this. You've been covering the team. He's literally a notorious liar. Like since 2014, we caught him lying like at least 4 or 5 times. That's all. Like he loves to lie to the media. He laughs about it. So
he just says what he needs to say at the time, and then he gets out of the press conference. That's what he does.
That's what head coaches are supposed. That's coach speak. Like you guys know, like the media should know this. And at the same time, Kyle Sloter, like if you're not good at practicing, like you got to get better because clearly that's what the coach needs to see from you. Like, I know we're talking about practice. Like, there's someone doing the Allen Iverson thing in the background here. But, like, if you suck at practicing, like, be the first guy to show up or something like that. Like, do something so that like, you're doing. I don't know how you practice better. Like, I don't, like. I personally was a terrible practicer myself, so I don't know. Like, I don't have an answer here for like what improvements you can make to be a good practice quarterback. Like, listen more, maybe show up more on time, contribute more in the QB room.
That's the thing. We don't know where
we can
the
only
perception
speculate.
came from.
We can only
we
speculate.
don't know where the perception came from.
But it's there.
And maybe it only is Mike Zimmer saying that one thing in a press conference like a few weeks ago, and then the media kind of rallying around that. Maybe that's what it is, and maybe I don't know.
I'd be curious to hear what like Elway has to say about him practicing, because Elway's the one that brought him in to Denver, undrafted free agent, signed him, brought him in, and obviously he practiced hard enough to earn all the time and reps that he was getting, and then he ultimately earned a contract. So I do kind of think this is a Zimmer thing. That's the way I lean here.
Yeah, and clearly, I mean, like you just mentioned all the numbers: 9 touchdowns, no picks in preseason. He's shown that he can get it done in clutch in the preseason. Like, again, this is preseason.
Always.
His games don't matter, quote unquote, but like, he's a gamer. He shows up when it matters. He has the knack for like the dramatic, I guess, if you will, in a good way. So. Again, it's what you want out of your backup, and the the risk reward type of mentality I have in me says to go with Mannion, because like I want to risk on Cousins being healthy for 16 games, kind of like a win or go home thing, like boom or bust. If he's healthy for 16 games, right? If Cousins is healthy for 16 games, this doesn't even matter. Like. You want Mannion behind him then for what we've heard about him as a QB clipboard holder.
Yeah. So I think there's
basically you're banking on Cousins being healthy for 16 games if you go with Mannion here, in my opinion.
So this discussion to me is the strongest argument you're going to find for the reason why the Vikings should keep 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, really, it is.
Because you're getting something from both guys.
That's what they did with the Favre, Tavares Jackson, Sage Rosenfels. Sage Rosenfels was Sean Mannion.
Yeah. And that's basically the anniversary of Favre coming to Minnesota. So it's a very relatable point that you made there. And timely as well.
Yeah. I'm good at this,
I have experience. I think that, ultimately I think we will see that I think we will see the Vikings keep 3 quarterbacks, and these kind of debates, scuffles, arguments, whatever you want to call them, between people about who should be QB2 will all be moot.
Yeah.
But for now, I mean, it is fun, and I think that there's a fair argument for both sides, which is why I don't engage really with arguments with people on Twitter. But my one.
Yeah, you do.
As far as this quarterback situation go, I don't engage. I throw stuff out there every once in a while.
You watch from afar. You spark a fire and then you kind of let it grow.
That's kind of who I am on Twitter now.
That's fun. That's the most fun, though.
Yeah.
I will say, okay, Mannion, though, like, he was solid against the Saints, and outside of the interception, which may or may not have been his fault against the Seahawks.
Yeah.
He was solid. I think the accuracy is a bit erratic, and I think the throw you mentioned about, or the one that was to Boone, that went for 40-some yards, that was like an adjustment by Boone to catch that and kind of take it away from the linebacker. So,
and you got, oh my God, the screen to Conklin that went for -8.
Yeah.
That one I gagged because I was like, because it was so stupid, because it was the design screen, so obviously the quarterback is doing exactly what he's supposed to do, but if you have any this is the trait that Sloter has that Mannion does not, where like Sloter would see that the screen's not there and he would just do something else.
He'd dump it in the ground or just like throw it away or run away. I don't know.
Or he would hit Madison, who was sneaking out of the backfield into the flat on the opposite side of the field. Like, that's what like that to me is what separates the two quarterbacks. Where like Mannion does exactly what he's told, where Slaughter's kind of a bad boy. Like that's just like that's just kind of who he is.
Which is, I mean, that's a good way to put it. Even the tweet today, like that's a bad boy tweet. Like
he's got a bad boy mentality. That's just who he is.
Bad boy Slaughter. It's what you want. It's what you want out of your backup quarterback for Kirk Cousins.
He doesn't have as much swag as Chad Kelly, but he definitely picked up a few traits from him when he was in Denver. So, so I think that probably wraps up the Vikings discussion for today. We got to talk about the Twins a little bit here, and then, like I said before, we'll wrap with NFL bold predictions.
Cruz. He's back.
Yeah, that's obviously nice to see, and that's a great point to make. We have the benefit of recording with the knowledge that just came out that Nelson Cruz is back in the lineup. So his ascent to 40 home runs continues. He's actually this kind of shocked me. Something I just wanted to point out that Byron Buxton and Nelson Cruz have actually played the same amount of games this year. That kind of surprise you? Because doesn't it feel like Buxton is always
is that true?
up?
Wait,
yeah.
Games.
It's 82 apiece, I believe.
Wow.
Right? You confirm that for me?
I'm trying to find Buxton's name on this thing, but he's like, obviously he's not active.
I always search by WAR. That's how I. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Cruz has played 5 more games. It's 87 to 82.
Okay.
So Cruz has played 5 more games. But my point that I'm making is that doesn't it feel like Buxton's been out for like the majority of the season? Where
it does, definitely.
Cruz is like out in spurts.
Yeah.
The fact that Cruz has hit 32 home runs in 87 games, by the way.
Well, I was going to mention Miguel Sano's 162 game home run pace.
What is
which
it?
I think
52?
It's like more than that now because he had another one last night. I'm going to do the math here. I'm going to right now live. I'm going to do the math with my calculator.
Well, I'll talk over you while you're doing that.
Okay.
So I'll give you guys a quick synopsis of what happened over the weekend if you didn't watch all the Twins games, like a normal human person and went out this weekend. Twins really played and overall it was a very good series for the Twins. They battled back a couple of times. A couple of the issues that we continue to see, of course, the bullpen. You never like to see your trade deadline acquisitions play the way that Sam Dyson has so far. Yesterday, of course, he allowed the home run to tie up the game, which did pave the way for Jorge Polanco to clear the bases with a triple that ended up sending the Twins to their first ever 4-game sweep of the Rangers at the ballpark in Arlington. Is it still called the ballpark in Arlington? I think it's still called that. Anyways.
Something like that.
My point being there is that Polanco, for the first time since basically the All-Star break, looked like the MVP candidate that he was the first 3 months of the year. So that was nice to see. Max Kepler continues his torrid pace. If you haven't been on social media recently, Max Kepler is the first European-born player to hit 33 home runs in a season. So he has the previous one was someone who hit 32. The name escapes me, but that's cool. So he keeps cruising along. It's nice to see, no pun intended there, and that's nice to see. Marwin Gonzalez is playing potentially the best baseball of his entire career right now. I know heading into Game 4 of the series, he was 10 for 14, which was a 7.14 batting average. And we're talking about big hits, too, from Marwin Gonzalez. And I know he had a couple more hits in the series finale as well. So he's playing great baseball. Luis Ariz continues to be like a veteran in a rookie landscape. He's being treated like a rookie in terms of playing time and in terms of kind of becoming acclimated into the MLB. But the way he holds the bat, the way that his presence at the plate is just, it's truly impressive for a guy his age. You just don't. I've heard the Tony Gwynn comparison a lot, and I really like that one a lot because I think that's like. Obviously, no one's ever going to be like Tony Gwynn again. He was one of a kind, but that's kind of the best. In like the best games that Luis Ariz has throughout his career from this point forward will sort of mirror Tony Gwynn with opposite fields hitting. His spread chart is ridiculous. He uses every part of the field. Not a lot of power, but once in a while he hits one a little bit hard enough to get it over a short porch in right field. He's been extremely impressive. And then, like you said, Sano, who has really picked it up as of late.
Yeah, he's on a 50 home run pace right now. Like,
is that what it is?
In 162 games, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then you got Cruz, who's at, I think, 59 or something like that for a 162 pace. That's some power in your lineup right there.
I think what's so impressive with Sano, too, is that he had that really, he had that extended slump, which,
Yeah, he did.
excuse me. Which really hurt his cumulative stats. His WAR, his OPS, his OBP.
His batting average was down to like 220 or it was like
was it down? Was it down that far?
Very, very low.
I remember
close
seeing
to 200.
I remember seeing 222 for sure. He's up to 243 now. What's more impressive though is that the walks are starting to go up. His eye at the plate is getting better, so that OBP is at 346. And just for your reference, Byron Buxton's OBP is 314. So just to keep that in mind, Sano's eye at the plate is getting better. And boy, when he hits the ball, in Twins history specifically, because I don't want to speak for other teams because I haven't watched enough baseball of other teams over the last decade or two. But I think that Miguel Sano stings the ball harder than any Twins player that I have seen in my lifetime. There is nobody that hits when he squares one up. Nobody hits the ball
harder. That has
harder.
to be true. I can't. I mean, again, I haven't watched a whole lot.
There's
I haven't
not
watched
that
any
many
of the Twins baseball you have, but I'm just thinking back at some of the names.
There's not that many candidates for one. I mean, if you think about it, there's there's David Ortiz for a couple of years, and then he wasn't very good in the Twins uniform. No one wants to admit that, by the way, but he wasn't. You've got Torrey Hunter, who maybe is a candidate when he was younger. Jock Jones used to hit the ball pretty hard. Obviously, Brian Dozier was getting some lift on his balls, but
Morneau was pretty good. Jason Kubel, there was a guy that hit the ball hard.
Kubel did hit the ball hard, but I mean, when there's literally it's ear splitting when Sano hits, when he really tees one up. He hits the type of balls where it's like. The one I go back to was when he thought he hit that pop fly and it ended up finding a way into the short porch in left field at Target Field, or not the road or the garden there in left field.
Yeah.
And he was just like, even he was like, I didn't think that was going to happen. Like he has so much strength that even he doesn't seem to fully comprehend that
he can mishit a high fastball.
Yeah.
And it's going to go over the fence. And
the opposite field power is extremely impressive too. When you start seeing him hit them, hit balls 400 plus feet into right field as a right-handed hitter, someone needs to teach this guy some more plate discipline, because he could turn into a guy where even if he's striking out 150 times in a season, if he's walking 85 times and hitting 40 home runs, you'll take that 250 clip as long as that OBP is hitting around 350. His WAR has increased. He's all the way up to 2.4 now, which is higher than Eddie Rosario, by the way, in 30 less games. It's also higher than Marwin Gonzalez and C.J. Cron, who just now hit his 20th home run, by the way. I mean, overall, I think that you have to be pretty satisfied with where Sano is at this point in the season. Yeah. And I think that a lot of these guys are getting hot at the right time, or maybe not necessarily getting hot at the right time, but getting it together possibly again at the right time.
And hopefully then, healthy at the right time too, once things, once the playoffs in October gets here.
Right.
If the Twins, knock on wood, they're playing in October. But at this point, after a sweep of Texas 4-game series, it looks like things are trending up, as you said at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, you're looking at a 13-game slate right now. I believe it's the White Sox and Tigers are the two two series that the Twins have directly in front of them, starting with the White Sox.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, they start with the 4-game set with the White Sox tonight, and then after that they head to Detroit. Excuse me, it's a 3-game set with the White Sox, and then it's a 3-game set with Detroit, and then back to Chicago for 3 more games, and then back to Detroit. And then you got Boston for 3 games in the middle, and then you head back, and then you get Cleveland at home. So basically, you've got 13 games here to build that lead up as much as possible before Cleveland comes into town on September 6th, right ahead of the NFL season beginning. One thing that I was kind of thinking about is that if we hit the worst case scenario, and I really do think this is the worst case scenario for the Twins this year, if they are a wild card team, let's say Cleveland ends up winning the division, I really like the Twins in a 1-game playoff scenario, where you got Barrios pitching and you've got this lineup. I really like the Twins' chances to beat either the Oakland Athletics, Tampa Bay Rays, Boston Red Sox are also sort of in the mix. I think that if the Twins do get into that one-game wild card slate, that they should be expected to advance. Obviously, that hurts them heading into the second round because you can't lead the series with Berrios, but I do really like the way that this Twins team is playing, and I like them a lot to win at least one game in the postseason for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's good. One game in the postseason.
Hey, it's more than we were saying when we started this podcast.
Yeah, I was thinking sweep, getting swept by the Yankees, which is still very much on the table.
Yeah, especially because I believe the Yankees they have the top record in the MLB, so they obviously have the top record in the AL, so they would be the 1 seed as of today. So the Twins would actually, if the season ended today, the Twins would actually dodge the Yankees in the first round of the playoffs.
Then you go play the Astros, though.
Yeah.
Which isn't like better.
It's not. It's just it's the history thing. I would feel, even though I think the Astros
fair. You'd feel better because of
the Astros are the better team on paper, but just because of who the Yankees are and who they have been to the Twins since I was, old enough to know what was going on in a baseball game. I might prefer the Astros, but I guess there'll be more.
Worth, on the Baseball Reference Twins page, it says they have a 98% chance to make the postseason. So,
well, their remaining schedule, like I've said, a couple of different times in the show, is not good. I just mentioned the 13 straight games against Chicago and Detroit. You got Boston for 3 at Fenway, which is Boston is in at the start of September. Boston is going to be contending for a wild card spot, and they'll be playing probably their best baseball. So that's a tough 3-game slate. Then you've got 6 games with Cleveland mixed in there, 3 at home and 3 away, 3 against Washington. So to me, you've got basically 12 games, which are competitive games, and then you've got 13, 16, 20, 23, 26 more games against very subpar teams in the AL Central between the Sox, the Royals, and the Tigers. So everything is set up for the Twins to make the playoffs. They just need to continue to play good baseball coming off of that series in Texas. So any final thoughts on the Twins before we get into bold predictions here and wrap up the show?
I don't think so. You seem to kind of run with the Twins segment, which is good because you know more than I do. So I like that.
You'll learn. That's what this is for.
I'll learn, and I'll be into it when playoffs are here.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to talk about the Twins once we get this pennant race heats up even more in a couple of weeks here. So, all right, so let's hop over into our bold prediction segment. If this is your first time listening to the show, Drew and I are doing NFL bold predictions during the preseason weeks, so there will be a total of 10 bold predictions from each of us. At the end of the preseason, we will do the name that we came up with is the preseason show. So we'll kind of go over the bold predictions again.
Please, we should just call it that.
That's what it's going to be. I'm not going to spend any time coming up with something more creative. The point being is that we'll finish that up. We'll get all the bold predictions out there, and then we'll also do our division winners and all that stuff. And then at the end of this season, at the end of the entire NFL season, next February, we'll look back at these and see how they do. So, why don't you go ahead and tell me your bold prediction for the NFL today?
All right. So, I've become I think in 2016. I had David Johnson on my fantasy team, and it worked out really well for me. And in subsequent years since, I've employed him not to the success that he had in 2016. Both in 2017, I think he was hurt for most of the year. 2018, the Cardinals were just bad. So now he's got a quarterback in Kyler Murray who is kind of a wild card. You don't really know how he's going to play as a rookie. And you got a new coach. I think things are going to work out a lot better for David Johnson this year. And my bold prediction is that David Johnson finishes the year with 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving yards for the Arizona Cardinals. And I feel like he's going to be, because of those numbers, he's going to be, probably RB1 in fantasy. But I wouldn't draft him there because this is a bold prediction for a reason. Right. But that's
certainly has the potential to do so.
I think in terms of the ability, he definitely has the talent to carry the load for both receiving out of the backfield and rushing. Because I think he was very close in 2016 to getting.
It makes a lot of sense too. From the perspective that you've got a rookie head coach, you got a rookie quarterback. he is going to be sort of that helping hand for Kyler Murray, at least in the first couple months of the season before Cliff Kingsbury tries to become a little bit more creative, I suppose, with what Murray does. But I would say that he's definitely the safety net, and he has of my bold prediction. I'll just kind of put it out there because it was very similar to yours. I was going to say that Saquon Barkley is going to challenge for 2,000 yards rushing this year. So I'm going to put him at 1,900 yards rushing, and I'm going to say 2,200 all-purpose yards for Saquon Barkley.
Okay.
So, 1,900 rushing, 300 passing. It'd probably be a little bit different than that. It'll probably be more like 1,800.
Why don't we just go? We'll put it at 2,200.
Yeah, all-purpose. Yeah,
2,200 yards.
That's and the reason why I think that is there's a couple of reasons. First of all, if it's going to happen for Barkley, like this is the year to do it. Generally speaking, your second season as a running back is kind of where you earn your keep. You really establish yourself. If he plays a full 16 games, he's going to get 350 touches probably. I mean, Eli Manning cannot be trusted to throw the ball 40 times a game anymore.
Daniel Jones, whoever it is.
Basically whoever's calling the shots there. So this is the year for Barkley to be that bell cow a la 2012 Adrian Peterson. And I can totally see it happening. I mean, I think there's a very strong argument that Barkley is the most talented rusher in the NFL right now. Obviously you've got Zeke, you've got Gurley, you've got a ton of other guys that people would love to throw into the mix. But I think that pure talent, pure ability, all three phases of being a running back, I don't think there's anyone better than Barkley right now. So I can totally see him racking up big yards. And I think he's going to get over 2,000 yards total. Like I said, we're going to set that at 2,200. And I think he's going to come very close to breaking 2,000 rushing yards.
Wow. I mean, I don't hate it.
It's bold for a reason. Anytime you mention anytime you put 2,000 next to a guy's name that's not a quarterback, it becomes a little bit interesting. But I think that I'm a lot more comfortable with this prediction than I am with the first one that I had about the Lions.
Okay, this is off topic. Well, not really off topic. Guess how many targets David Johnson had in 2016?
105.
120.
120, really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not before he was injured. I mean, he legitimately was like a Le'Veon Bell type of player. So it's not entirely. Oh, my Xbox just turned on. Do you have an Xbox or do you have a PlayStation?
No, I got a PS4.
Does PlayStation have like the voice recognition thing?
I think I could set it up, but I haven't. Because of that,
my Xbox just turns on all the. It's got a mind of its own, and it just.
It's listening to you right now. It's listening to our show.
It is. It's not happy with our show apparently either. So, anyways, that wraps up with the show. Any final thoughts that you want? Any parting thoughts for our audience here? Jesus.
No.
Got to fly. No, I've got a lot of problems.
Wondering, you're that was distracting. I had a thought, and then I saw you swat the fly, and I don't have one now. So.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, thanks as always for listening to the show. You can find the Twitter account where you can reach us, share your thoughts with us. We love to hear them. We will answer literally anything you say to us. On the Unbelievable Twitter account. That's unbelievable_MN. Eventually we'll be using that Twitter account a little bit more to sort of implement segments and stuff into the show. But we have to wait before we have more than like 80 followers there. So, but we're slowly growing. And honestly, like I don't care how many people listen to this show. At this point, I just want more. Like I just want to see slow growth. So that, at least we feel like we're doing something right. So things are trending in the right direction for us as well right now. So make sure to check out that Twitter account and help us out with help us feed you content. That's always good for us. If you want to find myself or Drew, it's just our names on Twitter. Robert Reidell for me and Drew Mahowald for him. And yeah, I think that's about all I have to say. Make sure you check out SOCOM Creative. And again, thanks for listening to the show, and we will catch you guys later on this week.